High in the mountains of Black Pine Mountain stood an old wooden cabin surrounded by endless snow and dark pine forests. During winter, the place became completely isolated from the nearest village for weeks at a time. Few people dared traveling there after sunset. The mountains carried dark legends. Hunters spoke about enormous wolves moving silently between the trees during snowstorms. Some claimed the creatures watched travelers from the forest before disappearing into the darkness without leaving tracks behind. Most villagers believed the stories were only myths created to frighten children, until people started disappearing. One freezing December evening, a hunter named Elias climbed the mountain trail searching for shelter before the storm became deadly. Heavy snow covered the path, while freezing wind howled through the trees around him. As darkness slowly swallowed the forest, Elias finally saw the old cabin standing alone above the cliffs. Smoke no longer rose from the chimney. The place looked abandoned. But Elias had no choice. The storm behind him grew stronger every minute. Inside, the cabin remained cold and silent. Dust covered old furniture while broken animal traps hung beside the walls. Someone had clearly lived there years earlier, but now only silence remained. Elias quickly lit a fire inside the stone fireplace. For several hours, nothing unusual happened. Outside, snow continued falling heavily across the mountains. Then Elias heard it. A distant wolf howl echoing through the forest. Moments later, another answered from deeper within the trees. Then another. The sounds slowly moved closer to the cabin. Elias grabbed his hunting rifle immediately. Through the frozen window, he noticed strange movement between the trees beyond the storm. At first, he saw nothing clearly. Then lightning illuminated the forest. Dozens of glowing eyes stared directly toward the cabin. Wolves. Huge black wolves slowly emerged from the darkness surrounding the cabin one by one. Their bodies looked larger than normal animals, and their glowing yellow eyes never blinked. Elias stepped backward nervously. The wolves did not attack. They only watched. Suddenly, loud scratching sounds appeared beneath the cabin floor. Something was moving below him. The hunter raised his rifle while the wooden floorboards trembled slightly. Then, from somewhere outside, a deep growl echoed through the storm unlike anything Elias had ever heard before. And every wolf surrounding the cabin suddenly became completely silent. The scratching beneath the cabin stopped instantly. For several seconds, Elias stood frozen beside the fireplace, listening carefully while snow and wind slammed against the wooden walls of the cabin in Black Pine Mountains. Outside, the wolves remained motionless, watching, waiting. Their glowing eyes surrounded the cabin from every direction beyond the storm. Elias slowly approached the nearest window, holding his rifle tightly. One massive wolf stood closer than the others near the tree line. Its black fur blended almost perfectly with the darkness, but its glowing yellow eyes remained fixed directly on him. The animal looked unnatural, too intelligent, too calm. Suddenly, the wolf slowly stepped forward through the snow. Then another followed beside it. And another. The pack was moving closer. Elias quickly locked the cabin door and pushed a heavy wooden table against it. The old walls creaked loudly as freezing wind shook the cabin harder. Then the growling returned. This time closer, beneath the floorboards again. Elias grabbed a lantern and carefully moved toward the back corner of the cabin where an old trapdoor rested beneath a torn carpet. The scratching came from below it. Slowly, Elias pulled the carpet aside. Dust covered the wooden trapdoor while rusty chains hung beside it. Someone had locked it from the outside years earlier. The hunter hesitated. Then a loud bang exploded against the cabin door. Elias spun around instantly. One of the wolves had slammed into the wood from outside. Another bang followed. Then several more. The pack had stopped watching. Now they wanted inside. Heavy claws scraped violently across the cabin walls while wolves snarled outside the windows. Elias could see their shadows moving through the storm around the cabin. The old structure would not survive long. Suddenly, the trapdoor beneath him shook violently. Something beneath the cabin slammed against it from below. Elias jumped backward. A deep human voice whispered through the wood. "Don't let them in." The hunter stared at the trapdoor in horror. Someone was trapped underneath the cabin. Before Elias could react, the cabin windows shattered violently. Freezing wind exploded inside the room. And from the darkness outside, the massive black wolf slowly stepped into the cabin itself. The enormous black wolf stood motionless inside the cabin while shattered glass covered the wooden floor around Elias. Snow and freezing wind rushed through the broken windows as the rest of the wolf pack circled outside beneath the storm. But none of them entered. Only the black wolf. It was far larger than any normal animal. Its dark fur looked almost like shadows moving across its body, while its glowing yellow eyes reflected the firelight from the fireplace. Elias slowly raised his rifle. The creature did not growl, did not move. It simply stared at him. Then the trapdoor beneath the cabin shook violently again. "Help me!" The human voice screamed desperately from below. For one brief moment, the wolf looked toward the trapdoor, and Elias noticed something terrifying. The creature almost seemed afraid. Suddenly, the wolf backed away from the center of the cabin while deep banging sounds erupted beneath the floorboards. The rusty chains holding the trapdoor began rattling wildly. Whatever was trapped below wanted out. The black wolf growled for the first time. Not at Elias. At the trapdoor. Then the wooden floor exploded upward. The trapdoor burst open violently as a pale man covered in blood and dirt crawled out from the darkness beneath the cabin. Elias stumbled backward in shock. The man's clothes looked decades old, and heavy chains still hung from one of his wrists. His face was thin and unnatural. But the worst part was his eyes. Bright yellow, exactly like the wolves outside. The pale man stared directly at Elias. "You should have stayed away from this mountain," he whispered weakly. Suddenly, the black wolf lunged forward instantly. The two creatures crashed violently across the cabin floor, while snarls echoed through the storm outside. Elias watched in disbelief as the pale man transformed before his eyes. Bones cracked loudly. His fingers twisted into claws. Dark fur spread rapidly across his skin. Within seconds, a second monstrous wolf stood inside the cabin fighting the black creature. The hunter realized the horrifying truth. The wolves surrounding the cabin were never ordinary animals. They were something far worse. The battle destroyed furniture and shattered walls while both beasts tore through the cabin violently. Then the transformed creature suddenly escaped through the broken wall into the forest. The black wolf immediately chased after it into the snowstorm. Outside, the entire wolf pack disappeared into the darkness behind them, and silence finally returned to the mountain. But Elias now understood one terrifying thing. Something monstrous hunted these forests during winter, and the storm outside was far from over. By sunrise, the cabin barely remained standing. Broken walls exposed the frozen forest outside while snow covered the destroyed floorboards beneath Elias's feet. The storm had weakened during the night, but the mountains of Black Pine Mountains remained silent and deadly. No wolves remained near the cabin, only massive tracks disappearing into the forest. Elias should have left immediately. Every instinct warned him to escape the mountain while he still could. But the memory of the pale, chained man haunted him. What exactly had been trapped beneath the cabin? And why were the wolves hunting him? Near the broken trapdoor, Elias discovered something hidden beneath old blankets and chains. A journal. The pages looked ancient and damaged by moisture, but several entries remained readable. The cabin once belonged to a hunter named Victor Hale nearly 40 years earlier. According to the journal, strange attacks had terrorized nearby villages during harsh winters. Livestock disappeared. Travelers vanished inside the forests. Then villagers discovered enormous wolf tracks around every attack site. At first, they blamed wild animals, until people started transforming. One journal entry froze Elias completely. The curse spreads through blood. Those bitten during the winter moon become beasts before spring arrives. Elias turned the pages faster. Victor eventually captured one of the creatures and imprisoned him beneath the cabin, hoping the curse could be controlled. But the final journal entry ended suddenly. "The Alpha is coming." Footsteps in the snow outside interrupted Elias instantly. Slow, heavy. The hunter grabbed his rifle and looked through the broken wall. A lone figure stood motionless between the trees. The pale man from beneath the cabin. But now he looked human again. Chains still hung from his wrists while blood covered his torn clothes. "The black wolf will return tonight," the man warned quietly. "And if it finds me, everyone in the mountains dies." Elias stepped outside carefully. "What are you?" The man looked toward the forest sadly. "My name is Adrian," he whispered. "And I was once human." He explained the truth quickly. Decades earlier, a creature known as the Alpha attacked a small village hidden deep within the mountains. Those who survived became cursed, transforming into monstrous wolves during winter storms. Most lost control completely, but Adrian had survived for years hiding beneath the cabin while the Alpha hunted him endlessly. Because Adrian carried the only blood capable of ending the curse forever. Suddenly, distant howls echoed across the mountains again. Closer than before. Adrian looked terrified. He found us. From deep within the forest, dozens of glowing yellow eyes slowly appeared between the trees once more. And among them stood the massive black wolf. Watching silently, waiting for nightfall. Night returned to Black Pine Mountains beneath freezing wind and falling snow. The ruined cabin stood alone against the storm while glowing wolf eyes surrounded the forest from every direction. Inside, Elias loaded the final bullets into his rifle while Adrian sat quietly beside the fire. "The Alpha won't stop hunting me," Adrian whispered. "Not until one of us dies." Outside, the massive black wolf slowly stepped closer through the snow. Unlike the others, the Alpha moved calmly, confidently. Its glowing eyes reflected pure intelligence. Then Elias noticed something horrifying. The smaller wolves bowed their heads as the creature passed. This was no ordinary beast. It ruled the pack. Suddenly, the Alpha let out a deafening howl that echoed across the entire mountain. The attack began instantly. Wolves slammed against the ruined cabin walls while claws tore through broken wood and shattered windows. Elias fired repeatedly into the darkness outside, but more creatures kept appearing through the storm. The cabin would not survive much longer. Adrian suddenly stood up. His yellow eyes slowly began glowing again. "The curse is changing me," he said painfully. Bones cracked loudly inside his body. Dark veins spread across his skin. Elias realized Adrian was transforming again. But this time something felt different. More violent. More dangerous. The Alpha stepped directly toward the cabin entrance while the pack stopped attacking around it. Snow swirled through the darkness as the giant black wolf stared silently at Adrian. Then, impossibly, the creature spoke. "You belong to me." Its deep voice sounded almost human. Adrian screamed as his transformation completed violently. Massive claws tore through his hands while black fur spread across his body. Within seconds, another giant wolf stood inside the cabin. The final battle exploded instantly. The two monstrous creatures crashed through the ruined wall into the snowstorm outside. Trees shook violently while snarls and growls echoed through the mountains. The wolf pack backed away, watching silently. Elias followed carefully into the storm and witnessed the impossible. Adrian and the Alpha fought like monsters from ancient legends beneath the falling snow. Blood stained the white ground. Trees splintered apart. Then Adrian suddenly lunged forward and dragged the Alpha directly over the mountain cliffs beside the cabin. Both creatures disappeared into the darkness below. Silence followed immediately. The remaining wolves slowly retreated into the forest one by one until only the storm remained. By morning, the mountain became quiet once again. No wolves. No bodies. Nothing remained except tracks vanishing into the frozen wilderness. Some villagers later claimed the curse ended that winter. But hunters traveling through Black Pine Mountains still report hearing strange howls during snowstorms. And sometimes, deep within the forest, glowing yellow eyes still appear watching silently between the trees.